Hello, everybody, and welcome to Murder Monologue. In today's true crime story, we are going to be discussing Brittanee Drexel, whose remains have actually recently been found after she was celebrating spring break in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina in 2009 and went missing. So it has been 13 years since this case has seen any new light come to it. So we're going to be talking about that today. Starting off, Brittanee Drexel was born in Rochester, New York on October 7th, 1991. Her mother and father, Dawn and John, were teen parents. John didn't really want anything to do with having a family at that age, so he took off and basically was never heard from again. Dawn married another man, Chad Drexel, shortly after Brittanee was born. Chad Drexel, being a decent human being, he adopted Brittanee, and the family planted their roots in Rochester. In April of 2009, at the age of 17, Brittanee asked her mother if she could go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for spring break with her boyfriend and a few other of her girlfriends. Dawn refused, obviously, because her daughter is only 17 and she knew what happened at Myrtle Beach around that time. There's basically a huge party of college students and underage kids. So she told her daughter no, and Brittanee obviously did not like that answer. She thought she was old enough, mature enough to go on her own with a bunch of her friends. So Brittanee and her mom got into a huge fight about this. After several days of arguing, Brittanee asked her mom if she could go to a friend's house for a couple days to calm down. At this point, Dawn and Chad were actually going through a divorce, and there was a lot of fighting in the house. Brittanee would actually get upset quite often. It was just a very tense situation to be in. So Brittanee occasionally would leave for a couple days and go to a friend's house just to cool down and collect her thoughts. So this request to go to a friend's house was not out of the norm, and Brittanee's parents didn't really think anything of it. So they let her go to her friend's house for a couple days just to cool down. The same day Brittanee asked to cool off at her friend's house for a couple of days, she met up with her friends and they all started to drive to South Carolina without telling her mother. There was one person that couldn't go because they actually had work obligations, and that was Brittanee's boyfriend. It is day 3 of being gone, and Brittanee decided to call her mother to tell her that she was at the beach. And she left it very vague on purpose. Dawn assumed Brittanee was at Lake Ontario Beach in the Rochester area. The temperature during the time was 83 degrees, which was unseasonably warm. So it was pretty reasonable for Dawn to think that Brittanee was at the local beach versus Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. So she didn't really have any questions. She just kind of let it go. Little did she know her daughter was actually sitting on Myrtle Beach in South Carolina enjoying the spring break festivities. During the height of spring break, Myrtle Beach sees a large influx of people. Tens of thousands of teens and young adults flock to the beaches to celebrate the start of summer. This area becomes a haven for immaturity and can even be dangerous if you happen to find yourself removed from your normal group. Law enforcement actually sees a typical increase in alcohol-related and sex-related crimes, including sexual battery, rape, obviously DUIs, all during that spring break time. There's a huge increase. It is highly recommended to stay in a group, especially when you're a 17-year-old. On April 25th, a few hours after Brittanee got off the phone with her mother, Brittanee decided to leave her friends at the Bar Harbor Hotel and walk about a mile and a half south down Ocean Boulevard to visit a longtime friend who was staying at the Blue Water Resort. She spent the next 45 minutes with this friend and left the resort around 8:45 p.m. The cameras at the resort show Brittanee entering and leaving about 45 minutes apart. As Brittanee was making the mile and a half walk back to her hotel room, she was texting her boyfriend John who was back in Rochester, obviously working. They had been texting back and forth very regularly from 8:45 to around 9:15. At approximately 9:15 p.m., Brittanee stopped returning all text messages to John. John got a little confused as to why Brittanee wasn't returning his texts anymore, and he started to get worried. So he made several calls to her just to see if she would pick up the phone. He even threatened to tell Brittanee's mother if she didn't return his text messages just to get her to respond. So John was obviously super worried that something happened to Brittanee, because it wasn't like her to just stop texting, especially because they were in the middle of a conversation. So John then called Brittanee's friends that were at Myrtle Beach with her, and they basically said that they haven't seen Brittanee since she left to go see this friend about 1.5 miles away. Now John is panicking a little bit, and he actually did call Brittanee's mother and told her the secret that Brittanee was in Myrtle Beach and not in Rochester. John told Dawn that he was worried about Brittanee because she stopped responding to all of his text messages and wouldn't answer the phone when he called. Dawn frantically called Brittanee's dad, Chad, to let him know what was going on. She then called the Rochester police in hopes that they would establish communications with the police in South Carolina. Myrtle Beach police began looking for Brittanee the following morning. Police connected with Brittanee's friends that were at Myrtle Beach with her. They did a search of the hotel room and found all of her belongings, minus Brittanee's purse and her cell phone. Her friends told the police about the other person she went to see the night before at the Blue Water Resort. Police went to the resort, discovered the video footage of Brittanee arriving and leaving at about 45 minutes apart. They identified Peter Brozowitz as the person Brittanee was there to see, but mostly ruled them out as suspects, just because she was seen leaving the hotel just fine. Peter was a 20-year-old nightclub promoter who Brittanee knew from Rochester and just happened to be vacationing at the same time, so Brittanee decided to meet up with him and talk a little bit and go out and apparently party with them. So with the leads that the police had to go on dwindling, they decided to track Brittanee's phone. The phone's network pings were tracked about 50 to 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach near the Georgetown-Charleston county lines. The pings had stopped abruptly early in the morning on April 26th, the day police started looking for Brittanee. The area where the pings ended was searched. There were actually several areas that would have been perfect, ideal hiding spots for a body. They were swampy areas, probably filled with gators, but the search actually came up empty. While the police were searching for Brittanee, Dawn headed to Myrtle Beach to help look for her daughter and arrived later that day on April 26th. As the search progressed, some of Brittanee's friends stayed at Myrtle Beach to assist in the search before returning to Rochester. They spent as much time there as they could, but obviously most of them had obligations, either work or finishing school if they still had to. So they actually stayed an extra week or two, and then they had to head back home. Local police continued to comb Myrtle Beach and followed some leads that she was actually spotted at a bus stop and a convenience store. All these leads continued to be dead ends. John, Brittanee's boyfriend, begins to theorize that Brittanee was offered a ride from someone she didn't know while she was making the 1.5 mile walk back to her hotel. He speculates that she just got into the car with the wrong person. After coming up empty on every lead, the case went cold for 7 years. Dawn had now permanently moved to Myrtle Beach to continue searching for her daughter. Dawn and John had finalized their divorce that they were going through when all of this started, and the FBI has now joined the case and offered a $25,000 reward for any information that leads to the whereabouts of Brittanee. The first true lead came in 2016 when an inmate at the McCormick Correctional Institute in South Carolina confessed to being a witness to Brittanee being gang raped at an abandoned stash house in McClellanville on April 27th of 2009. The inmate's name was Taquan Brown. He said she had a black eye and was accompanied by 8 to 12 guys that were all gang raping her. Taquan claimed that he was bringing money to a man named Sean Taylor when he saw Brittanee. Taquan then said that the guy in the front yard told me to hold on a second and went inside. Once inside, Taquan heard 2 gunshots. Thinking that they had just killed Brittanee, he ran for it. He said they likely dumped her body in the alligator pits that were close to the house. Beyond the confession that Brown made, they had no other evidence to back the story, however. Investigators also knew that confessions from incarcerated people are very untrustworthy to begin with, just because they are typically offered something for that confession, whether it's to shorten their sentence or some sort of good faith gesture to get out of incarceration themselves. So the police know that getting this type of confession is typically not the most trustworthy thing, but again, this was the only lead they had to go on for so long that they drove it home. Even though the confession from Brown wasn't backed by any evidence, the investigators still looked into the claim. They were able to find the stash house, which was actually near the last ping from Brittanee's cell phone. Because the cell phone ping aligned so closely to the house, this gave the investigators more evidence to go on, and they now come to a theory that Timothy Deshawn may be their suspect. Investigators started speculating that Deshawn likely lured Brittanee to McClellanville to be trafficked, but the media attention was getting too much to keep her alive. Deshawn failed a polygraph test when asked about Brittanee's disappearance in March of 2018. Authorities brought federal robbery charges against Deshawn in hopes of scaring the murder confession out of him. To their surprise, Deshawn did not confess. Authorities kept Deshawn's robbery charges, but they didn't have enough evidence to charge him for Brittanee's murder, so those were the only charges that were ever brought against Deshawn. Deshawn Taylor had been the key focus over the next several years. Investigators kept searching for more evidence, but were never able to find any. They did several searches and excavations of a wooded area in Georgetown, but they never found enough evidence to further the investigation. On May 16, 2022, Georgetown County Sheriff Carter Weaver held a press conference that stunned everyone. Police had discovered Brittanee Drexel's body and have identified and charged a 62-year-old Raymond Moody with the murder. They also charged him with kidnapping and sexual misconduct in the first degree in connection with her death. According to police, Brittanee was kidnapped that night by Raymond Moody. Moody then raped and killed her by manual strangulation before burying her body the next day in the woods. Brittanee's body was found about 35 miles down the coast from where she disappeared. Police started receiving tips that pointed towards Moody 3 months before his arrest. They said within those 3 months, they uncovered a lot of evidence that led them to strongly believe that Moody was the right person, but they didn't have all of the evidence, so they had to be patient and kind of wait it out a little bit. Over the next 3 months, they were able to collect enough evidence to be very confident that Moody was their man. They were able to arrest Moody for obstruction of justice on May 4th and decided to question him while in custody for the charge. Moody eventually confessed to kidnapping and murdering Brittanee Drexel. He then led the investigators to Brittanee's body, where at last, after 13 years of searching for her, she was finally found in a shallow grave and was identified by her dental records. After the news broke that police made an arrest for the murder of Brittanee, police were also asked if Deshawn Taylor was believed to still have anything to do with the case, and police had to come out with another statement that said, quote, "Throughout the investigation, law enforcement followed multiple leads to wherever they led us based on the information we had at the time. We have an obligation to follow leads to their conclusion. The person we believe is responsible for Brittanee's murder has been charged," unquote. This obviously still didn't sit well with Deshawn Taylor's parents, because he was basically being accused of murder without having much to go on. And apparently it ruined his reputation. Not that the federal robbery charge wouldn't have done that anyway, but they were very upset that that's all the police had to say. Moody has an extensive sex offender history. He is on the South Carolina Sex Offender Registry for a conviction in 1983 for sodomy by force of someone under 14 and the kidnapping of 7 girls. He was sentenced to 42 years in prison, but was released after only serving 21 years. This happens all the damn time, and I never get it. Why do we release these people early? They are sex offenders. They're aggressive. He kidnapped 7 girls and was charged for raping every single one of them. I just don't get why these people are always released early. 50% of his sentence was commuted because overpopulation, probably. I don't know. I don't get it. Why are we releasing these people early? If he had spent the full 42 years behind bars, he would have been in prison in 2009, and Brittanee would have never been killed by him. He would have been in prison. He wouldn't have been able to. Why do we keep letting these people out early? I don't know. He was convicted of indecent exposure in 2008. He then failed to register as a sex offender in 2009 and was convicted in 2010. Moody was actually considered a person of interest since he was stopped for a traffic violation in a beach town near Myrtle Beach one day after Brittanee disappeared. That's literally the same day that Moody said he buried Brittanee's body. Police questioned Moody in 2011 about Brittanee's disappearance, but nothing came of it. Moody told police that he didn't know anything about the incident. Carrie Harding was actually one of the little girls that Moody abducted and had to serve his 42-year sentence for. Carrie Harding is now 48 and was just 8 years old when Moody abducted her from a playground in California. Moody then sexually assaulted her. Carrie was actually able to escape Moody when she told him she had to use the bathroom, and then she made a run for it. This is what led to the 42-year conviction that he only served 21 years of. After Moody was charged with the murder of Brittanee Drexel, Carrie did an interview and said, quote, "He should have never been given the chance to hurt another child. We need to put this monster where he belongs, in a grave." This investigation is actually still open because Moody has been charged with murder, but the court date has not happened yet. That is the end of my true crime story about Brittanee Drexel. And again, it is an ongoing case, so we will be posting updates as they come along. If you liked this video, like and subscribe. That would be great. Otherwise, we will see you next time.